Hi, hi everyone. I'm Siang, and on this panel this morning here we have Kanan Chetia, who is my founder and CEO, effectively my boss, Advance, and we have Emilia also. She hates marketing. Today we have a very interesting topic to discuss. Today's this is a series of podcasts that we provide at Advance. We call it Web Cafe, casual chats on trending topics. And today's topic is an interesting one. If you are in the BFSI space, we're going to be talking about the impending, shall we say, MAS reference checks. Um, Let me quickly now share screen. Here we go. Right. So the MAS has recently, put together, I won't say recently, as far back as 2018, put together two consultation papers, right, on a proposal to conduct mandatory reference checks. The first one came and went. The second one just closed in June. So there are a few key highlights which we want to talk through, essentially about how these changes to the mandatory reference checks will kind of impact you, especially if you are in the compliance space, especially if you are in the HR space, right? And it, of course, involves all the FIs. What they've done is kind of expanded the scope, and I'll walk you guys through a little bit on what that means, and also included several interesting key points, which will, well, maybe bad news for some of us. Essentially, it is a narrowing of the scope, right? What they're doing is being a little bit more prescriptive of how they want to be conducting, or how FIs in general want to be conducting their reference checks. I'm sure, Kanan, you are very familiar in this space, having been in the industry for the last 5 years.
Well, yeah, I'm in the industry for longer than 5 years, but Avance is about 5.5 years old. But we've been serving several financial institutions across the globe, binded by the regulatory authorities, and of course, for Singapore is the MAS. And I think this quick web cafe chat is very timely because quite a number of our clients, not just the banks and the insurance companies, even those guys who are offering payment solutions, the fintech blockchain companies, they've been asking us, what is this MAS consultation paper? What is it all about? Does it affect me? So I think it's very timely. So I know quite high level, so I'm also going to learn with you. And hopefully you'll answer some of the questions those guys have forwarded to me to ask you. So yeah, let's jump in.
All right, yeah, that's so true. Every other day I'm getting queries from guys in this particular space. Especially, you're right, in the fintech space, in the payment space, we're getting a lot of queries on how this particular consultation paper or the impending checks will impact them. So let's head straight into the topic. So what's up? Why do this, and who's impacted? Um, Kanan, I'm sure you've heard about rolling bad apples, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's a phrase coined actually in Hong Kong, meaning that bad apples are rolling across the entire industry. So there are bad hats, I would call them, perpetuating their behavior, the bad behavior, right across several industries. Several FIs, shall we say, because um, there haven't been adequate checks made as to their backgrounds. They've come in and they have impacted the reputation of quite a few of these big boys. You'll be surprised. So that's kind of where MES is coming in, on why they need to do this, to get a handle of what's happening in the industry, especially with the prevailing fraud environment.
Yeah, I mean, we serve more than 1,200 clients across the globe, right? And it's not just the finance industry. So your bad apples are in every industry. It's like a Catch Me If You Can movie, right? Where you get to change different jobs because no one checked on you. And today we see the discrepancy just going up. Even during this last COVID era, the discrepancy is going up. People are inflating their profiles to get a job. Even in the cyber, different industry, we see different kind of problems. new problems. So I think that's what we also need to use our technologies to stay ahead, to be able to deal with the sophisticated faking which is going on, right? So it's not just a resumes. It could be on social media, putting up things which can be, a bad reputation for the company. It could be about criminal background not declared. It could be financial bankruptcies, fake employment, even they can even fake a title. So there's so much of discrepancies, right? Every 10 profiles, 3 to 5 some problems. So it's really not just financial industry specific. It's across all industries. But again, I think MAS obviously is very worried about it, which is why they're coming out with some guidelines. So yeah, let's jump in.
Yeah, I've one of the number stats that kind of scares me is that up to 35% of all resumes are kind of
or more, yeah,
or more are kind of beefed up, right? Talk about deep fakes, man. So cutting to the chase, maybe a quick look at what's the requirement right now. The requirement right now is quite high level and quite simplistic, right? They're talking about reference checks with past employers to assess fitness and propriety. And next, also due diligence checks on character, integrity, and track record. So the ball is pretty much in the FI court to determine or interpret what this exactly means, right? And while there have been numbers thrown in there, they're looking at a look back period of 10 years. Again, there are some changes to that or proposed changes to that. I'll kind of talk through that in a bit. But here are the highlights, of the consultation papers. I've kind of tried to group them up into 3 neat categories. The first one is scope of FIs. Again, this is where license holders for the Securities Futures, the SFA, the Banking Act, the Insurance Act, and Financial Advisors Act. What's quite new is the Payment Services Act. So all your fintech boys dealing with cross-border payments or even local payment technologies have been thrown into the pool definition of what an FI is, right? So that's why you're getting a lot of queries. I'm getting a lot of queries in the fintech space. People wanting to know how this will exactly impact them. The other portion, which I find to be quite significant, is the expansion of the scope of the representatives. So now they're talking about, essentially, for me to summarize it, it's any employees who have access to sensitive information. So what sensitive information? It's corporate information as well as your customers' information. So twofold, 2 angles to this.
But I see some of our financial clients also background checking on their vendors, contractors, and all that, right? So does this MAS paper cover that? Because it seems to say only employees. So
right. Yeah, but I think there'll be a broader definition of what employees means. So if you are a contractor, maybe in the cyberspace, cybersecurity, I mean, working for a particular bank, you are considered an employee.
right,
Although
because
in
there's a lot of outsourced contractors, call centers. A lot of these guys are being utilized in the finance industry, right? So you're right. Maybe it does include them as well because they do have, access to sensitive information as well.
Yeah, correct. Even the BPOs who are reaching out to customers who have a client list, their contact numbers and all that, these guys essentially, well, I would say can be considered employees of the organization because they will have a material effect on the reputation of the organization if things go wrong. Yeah. So the second piece is the scope of the reference checks. The first one, not much difference. We're talking about employment history, duration, job functions, reason for secession, right? Reasons for why the employee has left. So not too much difference. Compliance records also, not too much on that. I believe a lot of FIs are currently already doing all these checks, putting together records or even reporting on to MES for the RNF requirement, right? Last 4 balance scorecards, persistency ratio of insurance policies. That's because, especially in the Singapore context, there's been quite a bit of well, publicity on that, right? About some of the agents kind of focusing on selling policies, big policies, to people who don't really need them, right? Your elderly or even people who don't really understand them. So that's the scope of reference checks, right? And the last piece here, and I'm sure Kanan, you agree, I feel is the biggie, especially for us in the industry, what we are seeing, right? On the ability of a lot of these FIs to meet these requirements. The first one is candidates' right to access reference report. So those of you who are very familiar with the GDPR policies, the right to be forgotten, along the same lines, right? Now they're saying is that candidates must be given the right to access the reports. So when you do a reference check on a new hire, the new hire has the right to say, "Hey, look, give me a copy of the report. I want to take a look at it," right? Which is not the case right now, but going forward, it will be.
Yeah, I mean, we always get this question, candidates who ask, can I see the report which my employer ordered? And usually our response have always been, you can go back to your HR to ask for it, because the HR of an organization, let's say Bank ABC, when they order the check with us, they're the ones paying for it. So they become the data controller. But of course, the data owner is eventually the candidate who's being background checked, but we are the data processor only, right? So it's was a bit gray. So now if this in line with PDPC as well, the data privacy, if they are giving us a right to access a reference report, well, technologically, it's not difficult for us because thankfully our platform, Spring Global, already enables, there's a workflow whereby the candidate can go in and check as well. But he says that we never turned it on because we always give the rights to the person who orders, right? But now with this, I think those verification companies who didn't have the workflow probably got to build that in. But yeah, it's a big thing. This is a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, that's good news for all of you guys in HR in the FI space, right? You won't be hounded by your candidates. Hey, give me the report every now and then. They can self-serve and access the reports on a online platform. The second item is duty of care, right? As you can see from the deck here, liability still stays with the FIs, right? Reasonable steps need to be taken for cross-border checks. At Advance, I'm aware that we have some liability coverage for this.
Yeah, so we have a professional indemnity insurance coverage, a multi-million-dollar coverage. We insure with MSIG actually for all our clients. So we do indemnify them against any breach of data, a breach of confidentiality. It's already there.
Okay. The other piece, which is quite critical, is the timeline for response. So the number put forward is 21 days, right? What this means is that you have 21 days as an ex-employer to respond to any requests for checks, right? At the same time, on the flip side also, you will have, I think, 21 days to complete the entire checks, right? So it's a bit like a double-edged sword, right? So the turnaround time for these checks actually becomes, again, quite mission critical, right? It's going to be policy.
Yeah, but 21 days is pretty kind. We typically turn it around in 15 plus days, or even less. Or some of the, I mean, the database checks are usually much faster, but like the one you've mentioned here, the employment history and all that, that obviously during the COVID era sort of increased a bit because employer HR works from home, number doesn't forward to them from the office line. We don't have the mobile. So we now, our operations team is finding using all kinds of innovative ways to reach the HR, not through LinkedIn or through social media, because it's getting harder, right? But again, 21 days is probably still okay. I think we still can do it in about a couple of 15 plus days. That's good.
Okay. The only good news I feel is the look back period, right? Previously it was like 10 years, but now they are gonna shorten it by half, 5 years.
Yeah.
But I think we have the ability at Advance to,
yeah. I wonder why they reduced to 5 years though. Typically, a lot of companies have started asking more than 10 years because 10 years coverage this is not enough. So it's quite interesting that the consultation papers is only looking back at 5 years. But it's a consultation paper, right? So I don't know what's going to be the final one. They might stick back to 10 years. Because 5 years, in my opinion, for lower risk roles or rank and file, maybe it's okay, right? 5 years, 3 to 5 years is fine. But for higher risk roles, higher rank, higher levels, you probably want to get 10 years or even more, right? So that part is, I don't know, it's quite arguable, but let's see. It's just my perspective.
Yeah, you're right. It's a consultation paper. So when the results of the most recent one, which closed in June, comes out, you'll provide some rationale as to why they're looking at 5 instead of 10. And then same with me also for my BFSI clients. I'm seeing, senior guys being checked up to 7, 8, or even 10 years. But the new entry, the standard guys, maybe 5, some going, as low as 3, in fact, right? For the next stage, I just want to give everyone a quick snapshot of the recommended checks that we have been doing for some of our insurance, our banking clients, right? You can see on the left here the description of checks, a whole lot of checks which Advance actually does, right? And then 3 other columns: new higher standard, new higher enhanced, and annual. Basically, what I'm trying to illustrate here is an ability to kind of segregate your checks based on the designation or the seniority of your new hires, right? It doesn't need to be all same right across, right? It can be exactly according to your governance and your requirements. Again, to meet also the MAS mandatory reference checks. The annual piece again is for MRPs, right? Material risk personnels, right? And also for your sales representatives and your directors, according to MES 106, which requires for them to be kind of checked on an annual basis. Right? Well, the last section, which I kind of want to explore with Kanan, is a generic kind of topic, but I think it'd be interesting to get a perspective of, is tech the answer to meet the MAS requirements?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, not because we're a tech-based employee lifecycle management company, but because, and not only because I believe in tech a lot, but I think there's only way to do things in a very compliant way to meet not just the data privacy guidelines, but also to store data securely. If you're going to be paper-based company without using technology, you're going to be breaking a lot of rules. But I think more and more verification companies are embracing technology. We started as a tech company from day one, which is why our workflows all are highly automated. Maybe can I just take a quick share, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
Right. So let me just share my screen. Yeah, I mean, we have a platform. We have 2 platforms for screening. One is the Screen Global, which does the background checks, and recently we launched our Screen Chain as well, and that is a blockchain-enabled background checking platform. In other words, it will be able to check on people instantly, those who be verified before, but I'll talk about that later. So here, to create a case very quickly, I'm not going to go through, this is not a product demo, so I'm not going to do all that, but just to show, for example, if they have financial checks, right? And you need to know, in Singapore, for example, we support 150 countries, so there's a lot of options here, but they're under financial regulatory check itself. So you do have different options, right? So you have your FAA Act, or for example, your PO and EA. So the different forms of it. And based on the roles, whether it's MRP or sales professional, you can select the respective options, right? And then you're talking about, I think you talked about employment. So even employment, if it's employment history, let's say the guy in the last 5 years worked in, let's say, UK, right? And then what are the things we cover? The joining date, leaving date, the position, roles, responsibilities, reasons for leaving, eligibility for rehire. And then you also have employment performance, which can do the same thing, right? So it's a lot of, you can easily, you should be able to easily select this. And of course, this whole platform sits very securely in AWS, which we put through a VAPT test every quarter. So obviously a lot of attention paid to security. And I mean, and in this whole workflow, it's not just a HR having access to the reports. When the orders come in, if with the new, if with the new regulation, the candidate also need to be able to see things, then of course, the workflow can be just turned on, and then candidates also can see the reports, right? So here, like a test case, for example, the report just builds up gradually, and then you'll see the final report there. I mean, as the report progresses, some of the checks might have been completed earlier, and those responses would have been there. And then you can actually see all the responses for the respective checks. including the more details on it, the documents uploaded by the candidate, the verification team. So this is the kind of information I believe the consultation paper is talking about being able to access, right? So the idea is once a candidate has been screened, let's say Bank ABC, and now he joins Insurance XYZ, he needs to rescreen all over again, especially the static data, for example, your education, employment. Criminal social media does change. But with screen change, what we now have the capability is once it's being checked, what we can now do is we put in the details of the person and then hash code match. Instantly, it tells you whether this education qualification is real, whether this employment is really authentic or not. Then we get the results within seconds. So again, screen change is another topic. There's another separate demo for that. And of course, if you're interested, you can approach us. But just to show you the whole way that technology can actually support the MAS consultation papers. I hope that
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Kanan. Very thorough as usual, and efficient demo. Well, what I found quite interesting is increasing trend towards things that are pretty dynamic, right? I know as part of our offerings we have screen social media screening, right? Level 1, level 2. But the interesting one that piqued my my interest or caught my attention was the dark web, that we can actually do checks on the dark web as well, right? So that's quite an interesting piece, and it's trending quite a bit.
Yeah, why we had that option is because adverse media footprint only gives a lot of press coverages and all that. Not a lot of us have that, right? But then social media, most people have some kind of social media profile. So we wanted to be able to do things, and we've been doing this for the past 5.5 years. We're probably the first provider of social media checks in this region and in the European region. And it gives you a lot of explicit content based on what they like, what they share, what they get tagged in, and all that. So that's social media level 1, 45 minutes, level 2, 90 minutes. And of course, you have the dark web search as well. So this is initially, people were just doing background checks. I don't even think the MAS originally needs it. Even now, it doesn't seem to be very well spelled out. But why companies are doing it is because they really want to know what their employees are saying out there about the company, about the management, because this is about brand reputation, right? You really want to know who you work with. And then your contractors, vendors, partners, customers, they tend to go to the social media. I do that, right? And then if we find that this guy's very derogatory or this guy's a bit tricky or dodgy, I don't want to work with her or whatever it is, right? Social media is the place everyone goes to. I mean, so which is why dark web search has also become an important supplement to the whole social media checks. So I know the MAS consultation paper doesn't seem to be talking about it, right? Does it talk about social media checks at all?
No, it doesn't. But then again, what I said earlier about the current checks, about integrity and so on. Yeah. I think the broad definition of integrity should also cover, what you do after hours, not so much during hours, right? What you get up to will also impact, to a large extent, the reputation of the organization you're working for, especially if you're the public face of the organization, right? And then if you get caught out, then it's bad news for everyone, especially the shareholders.
Yeah, I mean, we've been posting all these developments in the technology and background screening, how technology can help on our LinkedIn pages as well. I mean, we can actually share, join our website, our LinkedIn page, and we'll be constantly updated on all these latest and the greatest of what's happening around the world. We try to post. I think Leah, the marketing team, do try to post different things happening in different industries, because this is something. I know this little web cafe is about MAS consultation paper, but honestly, the problem is everywhere across the globe, across all industries. So yeah, do follow us on the LinkedIn page as well.
Okay, I think that kind of wraps it up for all of us. Again, thanks, Kanan, for your time and
thank you
for sharing. Thanks, everyone. And if there is a need for you you want to understand a little bit more, feel free to reach out to us, right?
Please
either
do.
LinkedIn, or you can always get us on our website.
Sounds, I think this is useful because a lot of people have been asking about it. So I hope this clarifies, and I think you've summarized it nicely so that they don't have to go through the entire Bible of the consultation papers.
Yeah, it's quite a long piece of work.
All right, thanks. Let's meet for coffee in the next web cafe.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.